I wonder if we're going to have a bumpy ride tonight because Nero is being a bit much. He's had a very exciting day. Very exciting. Didn't you? You had a very exciting day, didn't you? But you're not going to enjoy more of the, no. No. I said no. I said no. I did not say no to no. Come here. I did not say no to unsettle you or make you upset. No. You're not going up or out there, sweetheart. It's not going to happen. Guys, he's not going outside. He's already been outside and he had enough fun. Oh, he got to be very vocal today. It was quite interesting. So I let him out onto the balcony, right? And he starts meowing like he's scared. And I go out and I think for a moment that he's on my neighbor's balcony. I think he's over there for some reason. But then I see that he's actually on my balcony and he's meowing at another cat that looks almost identical to him. Like, same markings, which I mean, they're not the most unique ones, but it was stark, like little black sleek cat with the white chest and then the white belly staring him in the face. Yeah. And he's like freaked out by it a little bit. Cause you know what? When I first got my like full length mirrors in the house, he went nuts like for weeks. That was actually, I think, one of the last times he attacked me. Cause he'll get like crazed. He has these crazes he gets in where, he's never really hurt me, but it's, he'll get like all worked up and agitated. And because I'm the nearest thing, he like, darts at me. And it doesn't have to be me. He'll do it with other things, It's just, part of their nature. But anyway, yeah, he was making the same kind of meows that he would used to make in the mirror when the mirrors got set up. Man, he would just like, he'd be all startled and scared and staring at himself. And like, I'm wondering for the other guy too. So like, yeah, me and his like owner both came out at the same time and like marveled at it because it was so cute. Like she let her little black cat out and I let mine out, and then they met each other. And now he's been very anxious to go outside though, which is a bit I'm like, no, you've had enough outside. You know what I mean? Enough outside. Yeah. But when I looked him in the face just then and said no to him, his little face dropped and he ran over to me. And now he's in my lap, bummed that I said no, we're not going to go outside again. Not tonight. It's fun. I think it has been good for him. It's made him a lot livelier. I'm wondering though, when it gets cold, like how much we're going to do it. A bit, that's one good thing about the winter. It's not too stark. There's days throughout that are peaceful and sometimes a bit warm. Yes, you like that. Okay, so yeah, we've had a cat-themed first few minutes of the stream. Shout out to Char Baby Yoda and Point Fire. Hi, thanks for being here. We'll get started on the book shortly, but I just gotta, settle this feline down who's so upset he can't go outside. I'm sorry. You had fun though, didn't you? That was so exciting. Oh my God. Okay. You okay if I start reading? You can chill for a bit. Okay. All right, so we're on chapter 18. It's been a few days. I was like trying to remember what chapter we were going to start on, and I thought it was 18, but I wasn't sure. But it is, it's 18. But I was like, it's been a few days. Hi, Josh. Thanks for dropping by, saying hi. How are you? Okay. Yeah, okay. All right. So he starts, of course, the river is the best cure for a hangover. Alouette didn't bother to hide her laughter. Okay, so she's making a little quip, our Alouette. I don't know what to think about this Alouette figure. She's an interesting one. Hey, too much. Too much. Is he too much or are we not enough? That's right. That's right. Okay, well, I'm glad you're here to enjoy the story. Hey, all right. All right, Shay had hoped she'd hidden how sick she felt. Alouette appeared entirely unaffected by the previous evening's drinking. They sat in the back of a tilt boat with their knees touching astride a low wooden bench that had been rubbed to a sheen by thousands of behinds. Interesting. The Thames frothed around them, the brown of weak tea, scarred by 100 overlapping wakes. It was as loud as the streets here, barks of laughter and gull cries, church bells and the ubiquitous thunder of the water wheels. A wherry passed so close that a youth in a blue cap could lean over and drop his apple core laughingly into Alouette's lap. She examined it for a second and then lobbed it back at him. Oh, how interesting, imagining the boats going by one another. So, like, I mean, I imagine, yeah, the river must have been hopping. It still kind of is, actually. They are, but you just imagine that so many people were getting around by that way. Hi, can I have my arm back, please? Please, please. Oh, please. Please give me, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Do I highlight the quality sleeves when I read? Sometimes. I suppose I do. We definitely acknowledge it when it happens. And we do talk about it. So, if you read anything that you want to comment on, please, or you hear anything that you would like to comment on, please don't hold back your literary criticism. That's a part of the fun of these streams. Okay, let me move this over. It's nice to hold him, but it's not as easy to read with him in my lap. Okay, so where were we? Are you feeling all right? We could have gone to see Dee another day, but I thought the river air might sober you up a bit. Shay nodded carefully. I'm fine. Well, I will be fine. The air did make her feel a little less queasy. Why doesn't Dee come to the theater? Excuse me. Ow, gosh. Alouette laughed. Because he is on call for the Queen night and day, and like all of them in her inner circle, he simply has to be ready to go at any time. He frets that the second he steps out of Mort Lake, she'll need an angelic reading to decide something vital, like what to have for dinner, and if he's not there, there are plenty that would replace him. Shay nodded. She didn't mind. A boat trip. Alouette to herself, and an actual magician, all were wonders. She'd heard John Dee's name spoken at the theater. Oh my God. They're going to meet John Dee. I just put this together in my mind. They're going to meet the John Dee. What? What? Okay. Always with a quiet awe, much of their stagecraft came from his Mortlake laboratory. Intricate packages arrived by hackney carriage, handmade wooden boxes that sat on individual cushions like princesses, stuffed with straw to protect the machinery and explosives inside. Dragons made with curved strips of willow and colored paper so thin that you could see through the other side. Coarse black gloves with fingertips that spouted fire at the tug of a string. And there were rumors of far more elaborate effects that were reserved for the Queen's private performances. None such claimed to have seen a full sea battle erupt on the moat at Fleming's Hall. Cannons fired, sails burned, and he swore on his family's life you could hear the cries of the sailors on board, all the more terrible for their childish pitch. Did you go to any of the masques for the Queen? Alouette nodded. A couple, but Evans and Dee keep those nights pretty close to their chests. They spend weeks on the script and effects, all huddled away in his house. Nothing is left to chance. You know how angry Evans was when none such altered the Cleopatra speech? That is nothing compared to what happens at a royal masque. Dee believes there are magical combinations of words like spells, which he hides in the text, and even Nonsuch has to learn it word for word. It's the only time I've seen him study. And what kind of masks does the Queen like? Alouette considered the question. Same as the rest of them, really. Cruelty and happy endings. Things that only go together in fiction. Oh dear, what a statement. Cruelty and... Where was I? Sorry. I wanted to repeat that, but I missed my spot. Okay, cruelty and happy endings, things that only go together in fiction. I suppose that's true. Traffic thinned as they headed north, and the river bifurcated into rich and poor lanes. The fishing boats were little more than rafts, while the boats from Westminster and Lambeth were like floating houses. She saw palisades and cabins, trumpeters and squires. On one, a full garden replete with pear trees swollen with fruit, swayed in the breeze. It took Shay a while to realize what it reminded her of. But once the idea was born, it itched at her. It was theater. In East London and the city, you got what you saw, faces, landscapes, doorways. All were open, but West London was scenery. They passed a house on the north bank in towering red brick, illustrated with ornate curls of flowers and birds, prettier than any painting. Fruit trees were trimmed to perfect spheres. Hedges became lions and bears as you came closer. The life going on behind that scenery was unimaginable. Shay would never walk the corridors concealed there, never eat the nectarines and passion fruits from the orchard. She would never see the musicians who were playing the harpsichord tune that spiraled from an open window. She trailed her hand in the water, relishing the cold and the pressure, and imagined herself as someone else. Oh dear. He didn't get crazy, and was he even doing that for Harmony? Yoda, bringing that mess here again. I've had enough. God, why? Why? He did. I know. You got taken out. You had to come back with your backup. I didn't notice it happened at first. Oh, should I have? Should I have backed you up? Or did you get away with it for long enough, Yoda? Mamas will build an army against you. Yoda. You were being, like, come on, it had gone on enough. You did not take up for me. You were, like, making stuff up for me. No, you did not take up for me. You have taken up for me many times, though, I will say. Chaos Confessional says gross. It's all about the bragging rights. Yeah, Yoda. I mean, it was pretty epic. You did have an epic day of trolling, and it resulted in you getting like banhammered or whatever. I was showing people in the chat that Court was a nasty old boomer. Okay, was that productive? Was that right? Are you not a nasty old boomer yourself? Working on yourself is not easy sometimes, says Chaos Confessional. No, it ain't. And sometimes it is, yeah. Well, I'm sorry, Yoda. But you did have an epic day of trolling, so, and I'm sure you're not done. Yeah, see, you're still going. You still got it. Still got that stamina to do some trolling. Yeah, well, because that's when it's to respond to what Chaos Confessional said. I just thought of it. It's, when it feels like smooth sailing, it's because it was like harder to just remain doing things the same way or being the same way, right? When that becomes like more difficult than changing, it's just so easy to change. But sometimes, yeah, you can only go so far on that. Then you have to like call on your higher power and God. And then that's just what usually happens when I do that. I like retreat into the mundane and present moment. I know you do. I know you do, Yoda. You do a lot to try and make chat fun. But you've been on Court for a long time and you make it vulgar and it's gross. Like, how many times do I have to see those emojis together? Like, it's disturbing visually. It's not like I see it, I'm like, dang, why did it's it's a bit much. Hi, Bubblelandia. Is Yoda a boomer? Is that how he has all the obscure slurs? Maybe. The donut and the tongue. Oh, God. It's a bit much. I can't, I see it and I'm like, oh, God, it's horrible. Okay. Alouette waited until the river was quieter and then asked, "Did you hear what happened last night after our performance?" Shay said, "Not a thing. There was some violence, some looting. The audience was all riled up. Apparently they smashed up Gilmore's shop and a couple of its neighbors." For real? The idea worried and excited Shay in equal measure. For real. I love thinking of these girls in 1601 saying for real to each other. Doesn't that just like take you back to 1601? For real? For real. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah, you don't like it either, Chaos Confessional? See, I'm not alone in thinking it's sick. I told her the relationship was giving me anxiety and now she is distant. Advice? I don't know. Are you a man? Or are you a woman? Because if you're a man and you're saying that kind of stuff, like you need to work on yourself. Because that to me would be an indication like that I should get away from this guy. The relationship is giving me anxiety. Like, okay, I'm going to back off then because clearly you don't like me or you're feeling pressured or, it's not happening like naturally. So that's just how I like if I were told that, that's probably how I would react. I'd be like, okay, this guy isn't really what I'm looking for. Honestly, like no woman wants to hear that. Like, why is that like even your anxiety should have nothing to you shouldn't even be anxious. Like, why are you anxious? You're a grown man. Why are you getting anxious? Like, don't hold on to that. Don't even identify with that. Like, because like what does that really mean, anxiety? What is that actually? Like, I don't even like that term because what does it even mean, anxiety? It could mean so many different things. It to me basically to me it implies I'm going through some difficult, troubling feelings, but I'm not going to like actually deal with them. I'm just gonna like let myself get stressed out instead of acknowledging how I really feel in what I'm doing. That's what I think when people tell me I'm anxious. It's like, okay, you're not actually even dealing with things as they come up. You're just like letting it all kind of get to you. And you're not being authentic. Or like, I don't know. It's such a rabbit hole. I don't like that term even. Like, that was interesting. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't know. I think that's enough. I probably said enough. Hey, Odine. Nice to see you again. Passing through to show some love. How kind. Right. Indeed. Like, I mean, come on. Like, you're a woman. Like, how are you going to respond if a guy's telling you that you're dating? You're going to be like, okay. He must not actually like me or be into me or wanting to do this with me. Or like what we've been doing wasn't sustainable or something. Or like, I would just be like, okay, like this isn't going anywhere. He didn't ask that. He didn't say that. He said he would like to see it. He didn't ask me to do it. He said he would like to see it. And yeah, it was shocking, but we forgive him because we've all said dumb things. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, they're calling you a lesbian and the beta male. Yeah, I mean that too. It's like I also just like, oh, a man being like, I'm too anxious for this. Like, come on. Yeah. Like I can't, yeah, of course. I'm not really giving you advice. I'm just telling you like why she's distant, and you needing to figure that out for yourself. Like what you've done has made her distant. I don't know what you should do. Do you really want to be in that relationship? Like, I think that's what you need to figure out. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes women are telling you the truth. I mean, sometimes if, like you ultimately have to judge and discern in your life as, a man, if you're asking a woman for advice, like you're going to get something out of it, but, only you can really discern what's right for you. You can't just take advice and say she's, the reason you decided to do what you did. You know, she might say what you should do, and she might give you advice that, about what to do that isn't what you should do. Like that decision is up to you. Yeah, I know, for real. For real. Like, come on. Yoda's like, okay, we got it out. I mean, we have to forgive people. Do you know how many people, like, people say dumb things, People say ignorant things. We have to forgive them. It's not, you know, it's not always their fault. And, I take it back to like whenever I'm tempted to judge someone, I have to look at myself and be like, am I not too like guilty of saying something inappropriate at some point, Because I definitely have. And you have too, you dirty, dirty man. I thought it was funny. I knew he was like that. I had to bring it to the surface for fun. I mean, yeah, most old guys are like, they don't stop. You don't stop being that way just because you get older. Like, if you were like that in your youth, you're likely to be like that as an old man. I've met them. I live in the world. Like, you'd be surprised. People just keep going. But I mean, it's good for a man to be like, active. If, I've noticed with guys when they get older, if they don't keep some of that alive in them, like they really wither in some ways. Like they're not as capable. Like there's a connection to the testosterone and the like vitality in a man that is important. So hope to God that like when you're an old man too, you're still like thinking about that stuff, just for your own health. I love a woman who loves to talk. Are you lying? Are you serious? I don't believe you. You love a woman who loves to talk. The second she stops talking, I know something's wrong. Yoda! Please do not participate in Yoda's votes. Please, chat. Gosh, I can't. I want to delete that comment. Like, ugh. No. No. He didn't. I can't believe you. Can you believe Yoda, guys? Can you believe him? Ridiculous. Mana's calling it out, though. Mana knows. Mana knows. Okay. I need to get on with the book, guys. I'm not here for this. We've got to read our smart, sophisticated novel by an English almost gentleman. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so we were at the part where they were like, for real. You could hear it streets away, lads with hammers chanting, "We are birds." None such as telling everyone you prophesized it. Oh my. They're getting themselves into trouble. This is nice. When I take my wife for a brunch date, she prays and then I eat in silence. It's lovely. That sounds nice. I like when I don't have to talk to someone. Don't you kind of need that, like when you're like long term with someone anyway? Like I've always wondered about that. Like I like sometimes when there's no talking. It's just peaceful and you're just coexisting and like in the moment. Yoda's spreading his own gospel. Oh my. Okay, well, let's continue. The jetty was dark and slick with algae. Dead leaves had gathered in the downstream corners, and Shay smelt the thick clot of decay. Ancient elms with knuckled branches sunk the house in shadows, and even at midday, candles burned in every window. The boatman wanted a whole shilling to wait, and after some unsuccessful negotiations, Alouette paid it. Every fucker out in Mortlake has their own boat. If we don't keep the pilot here, then we'll have to swim back. The garden looked abandoned, and flowers rotted where they grew. Snails ran riot, and the path was slippery with silvery trails. Water dripped from every overhang, eaves, sills, cornices. They stood in the porch looking back at the river through a curtain of droplets, and Alouette shivered to herself. Inside was better, though. A bell pull summoned a bewigged servant who led them through a suite of comfortable rooms with fires burning in every grate. All were unoccupied, but they had an air of anticipation, as if the owner was expected back at any moment. The servant led them deep into the house and then down a long passageway lined with books. At the end, double doors opened out into a vast, stone-floored room suffused with dim green light. The walls and ceiling were glass. Shay realized, but so mottled with algae, that they looked like some miraculous stone lit from within. The light was thick and glutinous, and the air was warm as in midsummer. Dee stood with his back to them, hunched over something. Alouette went to speak, but he simply raised a warning hand and went back to what he was doing. Alouette rolled her eyes. Shay looked around, trying to capture the scene to tell none such later. On the left-hand side of the room, the algae had been rubbed away, leaving a smeared circle of light in the center of each pane. The sickly light bathed a wooden rack festooned with hanging things. At first, Shay thought they were spools of cotton, but when she stepped closer, she saw row upon row of cocoons. The top row were furred and white, and on each subsequent tier, the pupae were darker and harder. The bottom row was as gappy as a drunkard's teeth. Some had hatched. Shards of cases hanging limply from the rack. Some looked ready, brittle and swollen. As Alouette waited beside her, tapping her toe with frustration, Shay saw the rightmost one shiver. She knelt down and the pupa twitched and split and spilt along its joins. Moist, feathery blackness poked through, questing for the light. Shay couldn't watch. It was too intimate. She turned back to face the room. The corner in which she stood was as wild as a jungle, and plants leapt from pots on every surface. Thick fingers of green and white split the peat. There were herbs that she recognized and many more that she didn't. A single orchid, smaller than her thumb, grew lonely in an expanse of earth. Hello to Chris, who has made it to the chat. He says, yes, read to me, Terry. He likes it. It is nice. This is a fun story, and I love imagining the beautiful butterflies hatching. Okay. Watch, whispered Alouette as she poked the tip of her pencil in between two bizarre leaves bordered by fronds like eyelashes. The leaves snapped together and the fronds interlaced as if in prayer. Alouette's grin was infectious. She began to silently point things out. A huge butterfly in the color of a sunflower slowly clapped its wings, exposing a pair of fake eyes. Then Dee gave a grunt and turned to them. Alouette, always a pleasure. He was thin and crop-haired, which had the effect of making him look like an animated skull. You could see the contours of his bones beneath his skin. The hollows under the cheekbones and at the temples were sunken and shadowed, and his veins were plain in his forehead and neck. He looked almost flayed. His eyes darted and narrowed and hunted and caught. If this, Dee rolled a pupa in his palm, can become that, he gestured to the butterfly trembling on the glass, then how much easier should it be to turn lead into gold? Lines crowded his face around the eyes, deep into the brow. Channels of disappointment around the mouth, and Shay knew the words weren't really intended for them. Nature must be persuaded to give up her secrets. She must be seduced. On the final word, he turned to Shay. And what is this? He stepped forward and directed Shay into a patch of light. His hands were slender, but his grip was as sure as a hawk's. Those mobile eyes cataloged every inch of her. He reached both hands into her hair and parted it at the center. He peered at the thin line of exposed skull. Why, an avisculton. He sounded delighted. The birds are gods, and the gods are birds, Shay replied automatically. Wonderful. I will have questions for you later, but first, Alouette, how are the little ships working? Excellent. We had two not go off at all, and one burst into flames in its box, but the rest have worked just as planned. That scene is the talk of the coffee houses. Lord Henrik claims that he saw tiny homunculi with torches on board, so now everyone wants tickets. Oh, homunculi. Oh, everyone's saying hi to each other. It's sweet. Dee pouted, idiots. Give them a miracle and they turn it into an impossibility. With that, he tired of theater talk and turned back to Shay. Men had looked at her as intently as him before, yes, but with other ends in mind. She felt pinned and mounted. Sit, boy, sit. He gestured to a long table and sat opposite her. He looked her over again, fingers like skeletal spiders shaping the air. An avisculton, and a young one, too. You are skilled in divination, via flocks of birds, yes? The hands mirrored each other, weaving unconsciously. Shay nodded. And through the entrails and offerings, too? Never. His attention smothered her, and she felt herself rolling towards the heft of it. We cause no harm to birds, ever. Two bony fingers pointed in unison, nail tips crescended with who knows what magical earths. But you do commune with them. You've learned the secrets of birdsong? She shook her head. These were the same breathless rumors that Shay had heard all her life. Flappers could talk to eagles and bend them to their bidding. Flappers could persuade magpies to share their loot. A hungry look stole into Dee's eyes. He placed his thumbs together and spread his fingers into wings. His eyes shone as he made the wings beat and reach for the ceiling. Even with his eyes obscured, the whole tilt of his body asked the question. She sighed. No, of course not. Even children know that's not true. Dee had something to show her. He guided them towards a darker corner of the room. Shay had never seen a space so cluttered before. How would it feel to own so many things? As the light dimmed, Alouette took her by the elbow and moved her to the right. She whispered, "Listen, just follow me, and don't look to your left." Don't look at what? Alouette's voice was urgent. Just don't, please. It was impossible, of course. The moment that she was safely past, she felt she could reward herself with a quick backwards glance, a mistake. The wall was decorated with a display of Chinese fans, pinned at each corner. Then she looked more closely and realized the sprays of oily green and blue were no fans. Peacocks, nailed quite dead to the wall, with their bellies plucked and slit in the shape of an X. Tubular worm white workings were exposed to the air. Shay stopped and threw up in her mouth, and then gulped it back down. Alouette hurried her along, but she was rigid with disgust. Dee looked over her shoulder and took in her gaze. Pliny the Elder says that in the Indies, the peacock eats lead and shits gold. I've been trying to find the methods they employ. Shay was a statue. The peacock's innards were translucent tubes, dotted with lumping swellings. How is the experiment progressing? Alouette's voice was a finger trap, gentle and binding. Inconclusively, said Dee, turning back down the room. Alouette's fingers dug into Shay's elbow as they walked between two tables lined with glass jars. Shay fought the urge to sweep them all off just for the sound it would make. Her mouth tasted of vomit, and the room smelled of the S word. I just read it. I don't want to read it again. Ugh. Longest, dumbest book yet, Terry. Heck yeah. It's the dude from the band she likes. Hell yeah, it is. What? Terry is using us as practice for reading to her future human kids. Oh, indeed. Kids' books are better. At least you get a story. This is a story. I'm reading a day. Like, dang. This is a story. It's an adult story, but it's still a story. Gosh. Okay. Alouette aimed. Sorry. Okay. Alouette aimed a pantomime kick at his backside, and he mouthed sorry at Shay. Amid the nausea, Shay prickled with pride. Her friend had recognized her pain. Better still, she had gone through it with her. She took Alouette's hand and squeezed. Dee pulled his head out with his few remaining strands of hair, smeared slantwise across his face like seaweed. They're doing well, see? Alouette parted the cloth onto a square of black. She pushed Shay to her knees. Look through here. It's worth it, I promise. Shay poked her head into the abyss. Inside was the black of a moonless midnight, But then, like stars emerging, pinpricks of light started to appear. She blinked them away. They remained. Some grew and some moved. She focused on where the floor should be and made out soft bulbous shapes of sizes she couldn't calculate without reference points, lit from within by hazy light. Pale, pale blue, a color that she didn't have a name for. The shape stretched away like a stunted forest. What am I looking at? She asked. Be patient, said Dee. She willed that unclenching of the pupils that she adored watching in Divana, sword point to musket, mouth in a breath. And the air above the forest burst with random squiggles of light, the same almost blue as the forest. It was like London and its birds rewritten in ghost light. She tried to judge the scale. It could be 5 feet or 5 miles, and the nausea of the other room returned. You live out on the marshes? This was Dee again, his voice sharp-elbowed. Yes, me and my father. I was there once for the ceremony with the starlings, the insuration, or the susurration, the murmuration. Yes, exactly. Extraordinary. Personally, I believe the patterns they make are part of an angelic language long forgotten by men. I've written liberally on the subject, but the seer there was skilled, very skilled indeed. Shay tried to stand, and her head hit the frame. Don't move yet, said Alouette, just a minute more. The landscape in front of her began to glow. It was a room bigger than the laboratory that was blanketed in mushrooms, which shone with a sickly pale light, a ghost forest, and the air she now saw was shifting starscape of lights moving like birds. The seer, she wrung her voice with it. The seer, she wrung her voice of any excitement. Was she called Ava? I believe so. Striking woman, tall, calm. She knew other realms. You could see that in her. She read those birds as surely as you or I might read a book. Her comb, the feel of her hand, and Divana's hood, that was all Shay had of her mother. She was desperate for other memories. A hand tugged her belt and she was back, blinking in the room. What did you see? Asked Dee, as if it weren't his experiment she'd been examining, as if his own world was a mystery. A dead city and ghost birds, Shay fancied. She could still smell the peacock's insides. Dee nodded, like she'd revealed something, and Alouette said, the forest is made up of foxfire. Shay shook her head. They're mushrooms that grow on dead logs and glow. Originally faux fire, probably. Those were honey mushrooms from Moldavia. And the birds are Polish fireflies. The miners there take them underground in jars. You can harvest their light. She looked pointedly at Dee, and he turned his mouth down. One can harvest their light at great cost in both time and manpower. He turned to Shay. That entire city yielded in the past month this little fruit. He took a bottle from the workbench, stoppered in black. It may get easier soon, though. I hear tell of the same thing in the forest near Carlisle. Shay swallowed her impatience and anger. That was my mother, Ava, who you saw. She was the scryer. Dee's attention redoubled. And do you have her gifts? Wait, are you the child from last night? Shay was confused. Last night? The Ghost Theater. Alouette butted in. You know about that already? This one hasn't even slept off the hangover yet. Again, his hands went to Shay's face. Of course I know of it. If a child speaks in tongues and causes a riot, then people tell me. It's within my sphere of interest. I've had 4 messages about it already today. He moved Shay's head from side to side and then took a quill and paper from a side table. Tell me what you said at the end of the performance. The prophecy, please. He can't remember. Alouette sounded like she was enjoying herself. The drink, or maybe you were in an obligatory trance. Did anyone in the audience transcribe it? Shay said, I'm sorry, it happened so quickly. I was supposed to sing, but at the moment I opened my mouth, I felt myself rising up. Yes, yes. Yes, a divine viewpoint. The seventh sphere, perhaps. Dee's quill tip raced across the page. Did you find yourself in the presence of others, winged beings? She made herself look at the peacocks. She would give him no more. I don't remember anything after opening my mouth. The next thing I knew, it was later and the show was over. Dee stood and circled the room. Idiots, idiots everywhere. Can't see what's in front of their faces. He circled back and grabbed Shay by the wrist. When is your next performance? I don't know. We were waiting to see the reaction to the first show. Soon, I'd warrant. Dee rummaged in his purse and handed Alouette a coin, a guinea to the person who can transcribe whatever he says the next time he's in that state. And wait. Shay went back to his paper and wrote out 7 short phrases in Latin. Shay had no idea what they meant. Give these to your butterfly friends, Lord Nonsuch and Little Trussell. Tell them there's no pay for the mask unless I hear them spoken. Shay wanted to ask more about her mother, but Dee turned his back on them. Alouette mimed a throat-slitting gesture at Shay. We're done, and they left the way they'd arrived. Despite the shilling, the boatman hadn't waited. Oh dear, I didn't think he would wait. All these people are drunk. Indeed, I know. He was pretending that they had tea. They didn't drink tea. There's someone shouting outside. I don't know who. Hello, Golden Reel TV. I do not have the hots for Robert Webb. That is not true. That is not true at all. Mena. Autumn turned to winter, and the leaves that clogged the riverbanks burned and burnished and then turned black. Cartwheel tracks froze and melted the froze over again until the streets were riven with ruts. Crows and jackdaws grew squabblesome over the scant booty, and the rooftops were treacherous but oh so pretty. Shay twisted her messenger route so that they always took in the Blackfriars Theater, just to feel its roof under her feet. Her footsteps were messages to whoever might be awake below. Tap, 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 I miss you, and her feet on the roof boards, tap, tap, tap. Do you miss me too? On the evenings that she wasn't with Devana, Shay stayed at her theater, and every night she heard the boys crying for their mothers, weeping that was passed along like beacons on hillsides, like wolf pack howlings, always for the mothers, Shay noticed, never for the fathers. Not during night, their hearts remain. Nights were when Shay took to the river too. She left gifts for Lonan on the Birdland jetty, like so much birdseed. Did they get to him? However hard she tried to keep her home solid in her mind, it was turning to a place of mist and moonlight. London breathed out and blew it away. And what happened to Nonsuch and her? They became a double act, playing scene after scene in their private places. Shay lived for those hours in abandoned houses where they hid to map each other out, her fingers tracing the contours of a new land, his cities and his outlying islands, his main roads and uncharted territory. He was Magellan,